and only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Hanapin Marketing. Our topic for today is 6 things you didn't know you could do with social advertising. So we're going to be covering a whole lot of ground here based on some different strategies you can pursue on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, to basically boost your ROI, to get your ads out in front of people who actually want to see your content, who actually want to buy your stuff. Joining me today in her first inaugural webinar is Kristina McLane. No relation to John McLean. She hates this joke, so
I get this joke a lot.
So yeah, she gets this joke a lot, primarily from me, but also a few other people around the office. But yeah, so I'm joined by Kristina McLane, account manager here at Hanapin Marketing, and also a prominent blogger on PPC Hero. Hi, Kristina.
Hi. Hi, Eric. Hi, everyone.
And me, my name is Eric Couch. I'm a senior account manager here at Hanapin Marketing, lead trainer and our education program. Also a blogger on PPC Hero and Search Engine Land and speaker and other stuff. Dog aficionado, lover of Fast and Furious films. I don't know, yeah, so actually this ties into what we're talking about. If you look at my Facebook profile, I have very prominently liked the Fast and Furious films. So if you sell those movies, if you target me, you can target me through that. We'll get to that. That's a topic we cover, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely cover it. And
all right.
Learn how to target Eric. It'll be good.
Exactly. Now, I warned Kristina coming into this, it might get real dumb because I'm a part of it. So she's prepared. And hopefully you as the audience are now prepared too.
They got the warning.
Okay. So if you want to join in on the conversation today, you can include the hashtag ThinkPPC in your Twitter tweets, or you can use the webinar box to send us questions such as, why are you talking about the Fast and Furious films? Excellent question, and we'll cover that at a live Q&A at the end of this. So to kick things off, we have our first live poll question. So Kristina, you wanna take this?
Yeah, I can. Okay, guys. So the first question is, how long have you been in PPC? So A, less than 1 year, B, 1 to 3 years, C, 3 to 5 years, or plus 5 years for number D, letter D.
Number D, letter D, it works. Option D, it's all good. So yeah, I know in the past when we've done webinars, it's usually a pretty even split across the entire spectrum. So yeah, almost, I think the last one I did, it was like a 25% even split across all of them. But I know here in the room, we kind of split the difference between B and C. So I think we have a pretty good spectrum covered here ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's half the room is B, half the room is C.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So it looks like history repeats itself. So we have a pretty even split here. So 25% of you with less than 1 year of experience, 1 to 3, or 25% with 1 to 3 years of experience, the majority in 3 to 5 years. And then we have a few of you long veterans out there with 5+ years out there. So I'm sure those of you who are in the 5+ year category will appreciate how far along Facebook advertising has come since you started. Because I know even Kristina and I, we can see the difference in just the short time frame we've been in PPC.
Yeah, definitely. Facebook has made lots of strides since when you first started using it.
For sure. Even just the introduction of the Power Editor.
Right.
Yeah.
So much better.
So much better, and we'll definitely cover that. So our live poll question number 2 is just another question. How do you manage your accounts? So you can, we have the option of I manage it myself, so the solo PPC professional, or you're part of a team that manages it, maybe a little bit more collaborative, or you outsource your account management, or you're potentially rethinking how your account is managed. So again, this is one of those ones where we'll see, often I think we have most people who just kind of either manage it themselves or they're part of a team that manages it. I think that's kind of our key demographic, our core demo. That's my marketer speak coming out. So.
Yeah. No. I mean, obviously, I manage mine myself.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no judgment here. We either manage it ourselves or we're part of a team. And it looks like That is definitely the audience we've got in here today. So 39% of you manage it yourselves, while 56% of you are part of a team that manages it. So we're glad to see some fellow like kindred souls here in our webinar audience today. So hopefully you'll find some nice little takeaways to be able to take back to your own self-managed and/or team-managed accounts, right? All right. So to kick things off, that was a little bit loud. Christina flinched a little bit, but I have volume control issues when it comes to my voice. You've probably figured that out by now, but it's all right. We'll deal. So we're going to talk about Facebook's many different ad types. So you can and should be using all available ad types on Facebook. They capture different audiences. They kind of achieve different things, and they have some different features that you can use on them that make sense to use all of them. So what do I mean by that? So you have the sidebar ads. You have the page post ads, and you also have the many, many different flavors of page post ads that you can make use of. So you have the regular page posts, which send to like a link. You have the video posts, which we also cover in a separate topic here. And they come in all kinds of different flavors, and you should be making use of all of them. Like if you have the content to support that, you should definitely be using them because we see different results from each of them. And I know you probably made like extensive use of each of these too, right, Christina?
Yeah, definitely have, especially the different flavors of page posts, which you're going to get into. But
yeah,
there's just, you've got to use them all. But there's definitely favorites, I would say.
Yeah, and I think like the strength behind especially like these different kind of page post ads on Facebook is that like on Facebook, your ads perform the better the more you appear like real content. And when you post these videos, when you like actually work to create content that engages with your users, because like these page post ads, people can like them, they can share them. Like the more you do work to appear like to engage those users, like the better your ads are going to perform.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what makes them more fun, I guess.
Yeah, more fun too, exactly. But we'll get into that. So the first thing I want to cover is sidebar ads. So this is an example. I just pulled it from the Facebook site, and this is one they actually provided. So I can't actually like. So yeah, the Paul Rudd lip sync battle. That's a little bit older, but this is the example they came across when they talked about their revamped sidebar ads. So you might notice, like I've highlighted it over here on the right, those sidebar ads look a little bit different. There's only the one over there now, and it shows up underneath the trending section. But you also get the main page post ads, which show up in the news feed. So Facebook recently updated their sidebar image ad dimensions. So if you haven't changed yours recently, then you've got a problem. And this goes for whether it's on Facebook natively or if you're using like a third-party retargeting service like Christina will talk about later on. So for instance, one of those questions you might start asking yourself is, why is my previously great sidebar ad campaign no longer getting clicks? And the reason for that is because they've updated their image ad dimensions. So their old image dimensions, 100 by 72 pixels for link thumbnails, 120 by 120 for photo shares, and then 128 by 128 for video thumbnails. So pretty tiny. I don't know if you guys have ever done like the pixel counting, but it's a pretty minuscule like footprint on the Facebook ad page, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's just way different now.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, I'll show you just how different it is in a second. So for reference, this is what that looks like. So I just went in into like our photo editing tool and just grabbed a screen of 100 by 72 pixels and then 120 and then 128 by 128. So this is how they look like relative to one another. So you have that very like squat and wide 100 by 72 pixel. So these ads were really tiny and kind of like over on the side, and they showed like 3 or 4 of them over on that side. And that's no longer the case because they've really updated, like they've just increased dramatically the size of these sidebar ads. And so what do I mean by that? So now the new sidebar ad images, they have a 254 by 133 minimum requirement. And the actual recommendation for this is 1200 by 637. So to put that in perspective, the 100 by 72, that's next to the 254 by 133, and then the 1200 by 637 is over there on the right-hand side, and then I can't even fit all of that in here because like that's the 637 height, and then 1200, like it continues to stretch on. So to put that in perspective, is our Facebook ads throughout the years demographic. So we have over here on the left at 50 meters tall, the sidebar ad Godzilla version. So that's the very tiny version of the Facebook ads, and then we blow up. So this is like the Facebook ad inflation is much like the Godzilla size inflation. Like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm sure in the sequel, it's going to get even larger. And I'm really excited about this because I just bought it on Blu-ray, and so this is where my head is at.
Obviously.
Yeah, clearly. So yeah. So Christina, what's your thoughts on the increase in like Facebook image ad size? And if you could, you phrase your response in the form of a Godzilla metaphor, it'd be appreciated.
Oh man, I don't know if I can handle that. But we can kind of see, like, so when you look at the little Godzilla, the green one,
Okay.
that was probably the original one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in the day with the little tiny sidebar ads, and you're just getting so much more clicks now because the giant Godzilla, brown Godzilla over here it's just, I don't know, click-through rate has improved so much with the change just because you're taking up so much more space.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't updated your image ads, at worst, you're not showing like at all because it's below the minimum recommended size. And at best, if you haven't updated them, your performance has probably been severely impacted because you're no longer able to keep up. Like if you look at our little tiny baby Godzilla over on the left-hand side versus our giant Godzilla over on the right-hand side, like if you haven't updated, you're on the left, your competition is on the right. So you're basically lunch. You need to really update those ads because you just can't compete. Now, so that's what's kind of happening on the sidebar ads, and I thank you all for sticking with us through our Godzilla-themed diversion. But we also want to talk about page post ads. So what are they? Well, they're these things. These are the suggested posts that show up in your newsfeed. So this is an example from Rosetta Stone. This is just a sample I think I got from like Google image search. But this is for their President's Day sale. So they have this really silly image of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. And so why do these things, so page post ads are fantastic. I love them, especially the unpublished versions that you can like A/B test, that you can just actually like tweak and figure out what gets you the best clicks. And why do they rock? They rock because of this. So you can like, comment, share, get actual engagement with your users from these ads, and it's really gratifying because as an advertiser, I'm usually used to people saying, "Oh, I hate ads. Like I don't want to see them at all," and it's not the case anymore. Like these guys like them. They rock because they mimic actual content. People like, share, and comment on your ad organically, and it really gives them like a legitimacy and kind of inertia too, because when somebody sees, even though it's an ad, a suggested post that has like 3,000 likes, 400 comments, like a ton of shares behind it, like people really get behind that, and they're more likely to click, they're more likely to convert. And it also makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside to see people like my ads. So give it the thumbs up there, right?
Right. It's not just conversions. It's actually people enjoy them.
Exactly. So that's the whole idea behind why they rock and why I enjoy them so much. But also, did you know this? If people don't like your ads, and it will happen, you can actually audit your comments to prevent negative messages from being seen. Because really, it makes no sense to pay for negative press. And luckily, we don't have to, right?
Luckily.
Luckily. So you just have to hide those comments. I mean, you can delete them, but I think hiding them is probably the safer way because no one aside from the poster and then their friends will ever see them. And it doesn't actually alert them to this actually happening. So in this case, you can hide comments like this guy. So this is a guy who said, "You spam my personal news feed, I spam you, kaboom." And then spam, spam, spam. This keeps going. There was like 50 lines here. And I feel really bad because this guy obviously put a lot of effort into this, and his comment is now not ever going to be seen by anybody except him and the rest of his like friends community, right? But also this guy. So this is the same guy posting twice. So it's he's kind of like a truther or like a conspiracy theorist talking about like what's wrong with Obamacare and chemtrails and all kinds of weird stuff and like tinfoil hattery. And we can hide that. We don't have to include this in our ad because we have the luxury of just hiding it.
Keeps us from getting all the negative press.
Exactly, the negative press we don't need. And then there's also this guy. So I'm just going to read this out loud so you can hear this. So this was totally unrelated to the actual content of like the Facebook ad. Like this was an ad for industrial equipment, and then this guy just posted on it. So he said, "My life story is like Way of the Peaceful Warrior, but better. I moved to Maui at 24, and on top of Haleakala, became spiritually supercharged. The goddess Kuan Yi / ISIS is always with me. She's been teaching me the ancient healing power of sound the last 2 years. I don't know if any of you know they're like the ancient healing power of sound, but if you do, get at me. And protecting ourselves and the world from negative spirits. And he would like to share his experience with humanity. On the bright side, like somebody like that, so he's not totally out in the light alone. But if we can hide that, like there's no need to keep up with that. And that's one of the reasons why I like page posts so much. I mean, we get that commentary, we get that engagement with our user base, but we don't necessarily have to hide all of it, but we don't necessarily have to show all of it. Like we can be selective with what we want people to see. So if you have an ad for your service and people say like, oh, I really like this, then everybody who sees that ad also sees that. And that's why they're so great. All right, so moving on. So we talked about sidebar ads and page post ads, and so we have a lot of different ways we can target them, right?
Lots and lots of different ways that we can target them. And custom audiences and lookalike audiences are just one of the ways. But for me, they're probably generally my go-to when I start, just because it's always about basically pre-qualifying your audience based on either people who you already know or people who are like the people who you already know. So custom audiences, they're just a type of Facebook targeting that target individuals that have already interacted with your site. They've either given you their email address, they know your brand, somehow you know, or they've actually visited your site from a pixel. So at one point, we've already met them, they're familiar with you, and they know your product, they know your service. So they're a great place to start. And you have lots of different options. You can do data files with phone numbers, you can do the remarketing pixel, or if you have MailChimp, you can even use that.
Okay, MailChimp, that's a new one. I haven't seen that one, or am like even remotely familiar with a monkey and mail. But it looks like kind of like a Curious George thing. But
yeah, I mean, he looks really friendly. So if you're using
yeah,
MailChimp,
so yeah, I'm sure you're having like a lot of success with MailChimp if you use it.
So from our custom audiences, what's great is we can get the lookalike audiences, and lookalike audiences are for reaching new visitors, but the reason they're better than just normal interest targeting or normal interest categories is because they take what you already know, the other people who you already know, and then use that data to locate others that kind of fit into that realm of stuff. So, for example, Facebook will take your custom audiences and visitors, use that data, and then recreate it. But then you can, again, go in and then layer it again with your lookalike audiences. So for example, let's say I know my converters that work really well are over 55 years old, and that's like my ideal target audience. So I can do lookalikes from people who've already come to my site and then layer that with that extra demographic that's going to make sure I get the right people, and the right people basically put the ad right in front of them. So basic tips: use what you already know works with the people who've already, come and visited to your site. Lookalikes, they should be attracted to the same idea. Layer it with the demographics that you want, and then the obvious one is make sure you have conversion tracking set up so that you know that
would be helpful.
What they're doing, so that you can see performance-wise, are these the right people, and how can you change it?
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, like, so we talk about like Facebook versus maybe some of the other platforms that you're familiar with, like AdWords. Like, so AdWords has what they call like similar audiences, and they have interest categories too. But the difference here, and the reason why Facebook is so much more successful with them, is that the users self-select. So when we talk about like using these interest targets, or why lookalike audiences work, is that like these people, like they've self-selected the things that they're interested in, and they've like said, we are actually like. So I wrote a post about this just a couple of days ago, like why interest categories on Google and the demographic targeting are so kind of like skewed, and it's because it's an assumption on Google's part. Like they're just going off of your search history and your browser history, and that's not always going to be accurate. Unlike on Facebook, where it's going to be pretty accurate. So like when I talk about liking the Fast and Furious films, if I'm in a lookalike audience of people, like if your service really plays to that audience and you know it works, you can target me, even though I might not have ever been to your site before, because I've stated a like in that.
And it's safer than like doing the interest ones on Google, because you're right, exactly. These people, they're like, I like this, and I'm complaining it to the entire world.
It's loud and proud. So that's the good part about it. So I know with like lookalike audiences, like there's a requirement, like, so we use the email addresses, right? So it has to be like a match between like the email addresses that you've gotten and then the ones that they actually put it on Facebook. So is that the case?
Yeah, and that's why you want to start with like a bigger group when you start out, especially if you're going to go with the email route or phone number route, more is better, just because like less likelihood that you're going to get everyone on there, just because everyone has like 3 or 4 email addresses.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know here, like I have my work email address, and then I also have my personal email address. Have you ever noticed like a difference between like B2B and like e-commerce lookalike audiences? Because I know when I've used it in the past, there's been kind of like a disconnect in like trying to do B2B lookalike audiences, because people would enter in like their work emails, and that's not the one that they would use for their Facebook account.
Right. Definitely. I mean, definitely you get the much smaller audience. So like when you upload them next to each other, the B2Bs, no one puts their work email up on Facebook, at least not for the sign in. But a good kind of alternative is that's when you do just the actual remarketing, which we're going to get into.
All right.
Remarketing is a good way to do the B2B without basically locking yourself out of everyone who just uses their work emails.
Yeah, so problem solved. Stay tuned. But yeah, so moving on.
So the last thing is lookalike audiences of converted visitors. This you can do straight in Facebook if you already have conversion data. So you don't have to do MailChimp or data files or any of that. You basically can just take what is converting on Facebook, make a lookalike of your converters, and then you have that audience without basically doing any work of uploading them, adding any pixels. It's just a really fast, really easy way. It's like takes 2 clicks and then I think 72 hours, and then you have your audience.
Yeah.
So it's just a very quick way to start doing lookalikes without doing any of the work.
That sounds like incredibly attractive to me, because I'm all about like getting that in, basically minimizing the amount of work I have to put into this, like formatting a data file and all that sounds like a lot of work. But I do know like this particular kind of advertising in the right industry can be really successful. So we've had clients in the past who come through who've literally shifted like half of their AdWords spend. So they were spending like $100,000 a month in AdWords. They shifted half of that to Facebook lookalike audiences because they were seeing a better cost per click. They were seeing a better cost per conversion. They were actually getting in front of the people who they wanted to be in front of. And so it was like a B2C lead, B2C lead generation, so consumer facing, but it was incredibly successful because it also played to the demographic that they were looking for. So they were like looking for younger people, like 18 to 24. And at the time, Facebook was where you found them. So it was really successful. So if you haven't already tried this, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, it is. It's like you said, it's just pre-qualifying. You're basically just getting right in front of the people you want to. And maybe it's just way too expensive sometimes to do it search-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, like, again, some of those industries, the cost per click might be astronomical. So you need to make sure you need to be in front of the right people before you pay for that click. So our third point is talking about Facebook video post ads. So did you know you can do video posts on Facebook, and not the prohibitively expensive kind of premium video ads that they talk about? Like, this is the kind every average Joe can actually make use of, and it's not just like a link post to YouTube. So you can use all the same targeting methods that Kristina just talked about when you run them. So the reason I wanted to like point out that these are just normal video posts, like not the premium kind, is that there was a lot of confusion about this. So prior to my own experience with this, the only thing I was able to see about video post ads on Facebook was the premium video ads that they talked about on Facebook.com. And it was like talking about needing an insertion order. And it was basically like a traditional media buy where you were paying for impressions, not necessarily direct response. So this is something that you can actually do like with your existing video assets. So they look like this. This is like a regular page post ad where you have like the account info and then a video description where you like talk about the benefits and what the person in there is actually doing. And then the video here, so the difference between something like a link post to a YouTube video page is that this video plays directly in Facebook. And then you also have all the stuff there with like likes, shares, and comments that you see with regular page post ads. It's just a different kind. And so you need like, it's an HD video. There are some size requirements. Like you can have it go all the way up to 1080p. Or, you know, I think this particular video is in like a 1200 by 637 range. So it's a pretty compressed video, so it's not the best in terms of quality, but it plays directly in Facebook, and it's only about 30 seconds long. And we get all the same benefits of a regular page post ad. So this is an advertisement. 454 people have liked it, and 117 have shared it, which is fantastic. I love that. And this is just a great, like a brand building exercise, because this particular person loves the service, the product that we're offering here. So, and we're getting people like organic shares because of it. So I love it. It's one of my favorite things that I've done with Facebook so far.
Free publicity.
Yeah, free publicity is never bad, and especially free positive publicity. So why should you run them? So if you have videos, you can make use of them. So this initially started as a YouTube remarketing campaign, and then I asked the guy who makes the video assets for this particular client, hey, can you send this over to us so we can actually use this, like the raw video, so we can actually use it on Facebook. So this has an astronomical click-through rate. Like it's ridiculous. So here are the statistics over the last 30 days. So we have 3 different Facebook campaigns. So we have our sidebar ads campaign, which we only just updated to the new image ad dimensions, which in this case had a click-through rate of 0.124%. So kind of like a display buy, right? Yeah. Oh, now that hurts. This is a judgment-free zone. I feel you just judged me.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. But we have it in comparison to our regular page post, which has a 1.3% click-through rate. And then this video page post has a 2.124% click-through rate. So if you're doing the math, that's almost twice the click-through rate of a regular page post, and it's almost 20 times the click-through rate of a sidebar ad, which is ridiculous. And it's also really pretty.
It is really pretty.
Thank you.
And they like them so much.
They really do. They love it. They go absolutely hog wild for it. But a couple of video tips. So if you like YouTube video ads, you need to make sure you keep your Facebook video ads short. So that's first tip. And the reason you need to keep them short is because people need to get through the entire video, because they can see your call to action button. This only shows up at the end of your video, but it allows you to link to an external destination URL. So in this case, when that video that I showed you in the previous example finishes playing, you get the option to either replay the video, which I'd be happy to see them do, because it's a very good video, or they can go to learn more with a destination URL that's tagged with all of our tracking information that says, hey, this came from this Facebook video ad campaign. And if you're into direct response, keep your videos short and use the call to action button. So this isn't just a brand building exercise. We can actually get direct conversions from this video because it's short and we use the call to action button. So you should do the same thing.
Definitely, if they watch the video all the way through, depending on if it's short, they're probably more likely to click through and be a good lead.
Yeah, end up actually becoming a lead. And in this case, so with Facebook, you have all the same video playing metrics that you have in YouTube. So you can see the percentage of video plays to 25%, to 50%, to 95%. And in this case, I think the percentage that gets it all the way through is about 40%, which is way better than some of the other YouTube campaigns that I've used.
Yeah, no, definitely. All my YouTube campaigns, you see a lot more on that dip off much earlier on.
Yeah, and so you need to keep your videos short and use the call to action button. And I think the other benefit of, again, being on Facebook is that they're more likely to watch it all the way through, because you see people have liked and commented and shared it. So you get that, again, it's that legitimacy and inertia, get people to play it through completion more often. All right, so Facebook remarketing, one of my favorite tricks.
So we've already basically kind of touched on it, so that's good. We can jump right in. The Facebook remarketing works really well for basically both B2B, but then also if you just, traditional, just want to get in front of the consumer. So what I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through Facebook using a platform, outside platform, and then native Facebook remarketing, where you just use Facebook's pixel and kind of goes through.
Right.
So the main platforms that I use a lot or hear a lot about are Perfect Audience and AdRoll are the main platforms for Facebook remarketing.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a screenshot here of AdRoll itself. So kind of going through the pros of why do it on a platform versus doing it somewhere else.
Right.
Is that the platform is a lot more easier to navigate.
Right.
Facebook gets a little messy sometimes and tricky, and sometimes it's stuff you have to work around, especially if you're first starting out. This is a lot easier because it's going to be a simple step-by-step process where you basically get started, upload ad, upload this, and they just tell you one by one how to do it. So it's really simple to start.
Yeah, and I do want to be clear though. I mean, Facebook has gotten a lot better.
It's true. It's true. It has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and the reason I think the reason you could say like these services popped up is that, I mean, well, the first part is Facebook didn't always have native retargeting, so there was kind of like a gap in the marketplace to use that.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it wasn't available.
Yeah, and it was not. Yeah, it was not available. And the other reason was like that these popped up and kind of still persist is because the interface is so much easier to navigate and actually use. But again, I mean, we don't want to like slam Facebook too bad. It's gotten a lot better.
Don't worry, I'm going to start talking about in a minute why native remarketing is good too. So
all right,
we're going to get both sides.
All right. So again, fair and balanced coverage here of like we're getting all sides of the issue. And this is a judgment-free zone, so Facebook, do not feel judged.
Yeah, don't judge. No judgment.
Yeah. Unless we're talking about like Christina's disdain for the Fast and Furious films, or Godzilla. Either way, I mean.
I have no judge. I haven't seen Godzilla, so I can't have any judgment for Godzilla yet.
All right. Well, we'll get there. Maybe someday. You can borrow it. You can borrow it. Okay.
Okay. After you watch it, send it over. I'll let you know what I think.
All right. Done.
So what's also great about the platforms is the dynamic remarketing, which we can't necessarily do with Facebook. So what this basically is this is good for obviously e-commerce. This is why you would use it. The shopping cart tells you that. Basically, you just change a snippet of code and you tie it with your Google Merchant Center on the back end.
Right.
And then the ads that are going to show up to your people on Facebook are going to change. So you're going to, they see a pair of shoes, those pair of shoes are going to be remarketed to them on Facebook directly. Right. So it's obviously, again, this is very good for like e-commerce, lead gen. You're not really going to necessarily get much from it. But it is a nice benefit and something you can get a lot out of using like this first one here is for perfect audience, and just using that outside platform is you're going to get perks like this.
Right. So I know like it's been long established like that having a shopping campaign or like or previously known as a PLA campaign is kind of like a best practice for e-commerce. Would you almost say like, has this been successful enough for you? Like this is also like another one of those best practices for an e-commerce account?
I mean, yeah, I think it works so much similar that, I mean, it's basically like making lots of remarketing lists without the work. So it's just basically rechanging it for yourself.
Right. Which, as we've all established here, I like doing more with less of the work. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay, go ahead and going through the cons. Obviously, there's an extra cost using an outside platform. And also there's a lot less options. So like the video campaigns that Eric just hopefully sold you on, and all the other types of options that you get in the page posts, you just get this basically the simple kind of cookie cutter version.
Right.
So you don't get those benefits of using even like offer posts or events posts or the video. So that's kind of a reason maybe to stay away, is that you do have more costs and you don't have as much free reign or as creativity.
Yeah, and I know in some of the cases like AdRoll has, so it's kind of like a jack of all trades issue where like they're not only just doing Facebook retargeting, they're doing like Twitter retargeting and all other kinds of services in there. And while like it might be beneficial to you to have all those things like under one umbrella, maybe you don't want to do all that. And in that case, like the lack of a feature set, like the inability to like focus on Facebook and get really detailed with some of this stuff might be a con for you.
Right. No, exactly. Okay, so native Facebook remarketing. What's great, okay, so jumping ahead for what I just said is that there's just so many more options and you get a lot more to do with it. It's also all in one interface. So if you were doing not just remarketing, but also, some other advertising earlier on, maybe lookalike audiences or something like that.
Maybe.
Then you could come back and you don't have to jump through basically logins here and logins here. It's just a lot simpler in that kind of aspect. But also what I really like doing is I like having the ability to layer your targeting. So you get, like I think I mentioned earlier, you get your website visitors to come back by just remarketing to them, and then layer them with the demographics that you're going to get your best person in front of you that you want.
Right.
So, if you want to target just men or just, a certain state, but you have other people visiting, it's a lot more easier, I think, for at least in my perspective, to get not only just remarket, but remarket to the right people.
Yeah, so I think like the distinction I've always kind of taken when it comes to like using a third-party platform versus using like the native remarketing, I mean, now that it is available, Because I think the native remarketing, would you say it's more for like power user as opposed to like the basic one? Like, so the other third-party platforms is kind of like if you want to start getting your feet wet with that advertising. Like, so we've used it as really kind of like a great introductory platform for Facebook advertising for some clients. And you might find like the same kind of success. Like the other people who said like remarketing is kind of like it's low-hanging fruit. So you can start with Facebook in kind of a similar way.
No, exactly. So yeah, AdRoll is the good jump or perfect audience or whatever. It's a good intro. And then when maybe you want to try to start doing more complicated stuff, this is available. That's the options of it is what's nice.
All right.
And then just the con for using it is it just does take more time.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot more being familiar with Facebook, but also
the Facebook interface too.
And the Facebook interface and all the workarounds, but also even just the setup, just because you're going to start making more complicated stuff. You're going to get the layers and you're going to get the demographics, and it's just going to take a lot more initial setup time, but it's the options that you're basically working for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at least one tip to help you save more time when it comes to like native Facebook remarketing, you're probably going to want to use Chrome, because the Power Editor, as we all know, does not work in any other browser. It's Chrome only for now, so maybe in perpetuity. We don't know. We can't say, like, I can't speak for Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg. I can't speak for him, but for now, it is just Chrome only. So let's talk a little bit about Twitter.
Okay. So Twitter, and it's probably about time for Twitter. We've spent a lot of time on Facebook so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for Twitter, what's I think is great about Twitter is the Twitter cards. So there's two types, and the first type here is the lead generation card. And what's great about that is all you have to do to get a lead is they just have to click that button there, the get in touch, and then you have their email address. They don't have to fill out a form. They can just be going, I don't know how you guys use Twitter, but I just scroll through really quickly. And it's kind of designed for that Twitter culture where you can just click and keep going. You don't leave, and then you get that email address in the back end and you have it. And then you can, basically come back to them later because you have their contact information.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the instant gratification form of lead generation.
Right, and it's almost like, they don't even have to think about it. They just click a button and keep going. So
yeah, so is the button itself like customizable? Like, can you test different calls to action, or?
Yeah, with lead generation cards, you can basically put whatever you want. So
that sounds incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I think there's a character limit, obviously.
Oh, okay. Well.
But you can, whatever you want to offer, obviously whatever incentive you have for them to click it, you could do to get that email address. Okay,
well, great. Yeah, I know I've seen these a couple of times, both for other industries, and I think I've gotten it a couple of times for like the Conversion Summit coming up. But yeah, so I've seen them, and it does, anonymize this. So luckily, it does look like really powerful, and I think you can use this with like remarketing and all the other targeting types too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Or did I just step on your toes there?
You did. You jumped ahead a little bit. That's okay. You can definitely use it with remarketing, which is, again, I've already talked why remarketing is good. Pre-qualified visitors, low-hanging fruit, etc.
Oh, I feel so bad. I'm just like a scolded dog over in the corner.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right. So moving on?
Moving on.
Oh, we'll just move past that. Okay.
Moving on, we have the website card. So website cards aren't necessarily like lead generation in the sense that they're a lot more like your traditional type of advertising. So they're going to click the button, the read more in this case, and then they're going to go to your website. So then basically they're on your website, and then the landing page does the work that it's supposed to. So whether you're selling stuff, whether you're trying to just get the lead, it's much more traditional in that kind of sense, is that you're going to try to get the conversion on the back end.
Right.
So this is if you don't have necessarily like an email marketing campaign, so for just the emails, or you need more information, website cards are really easy to set up. You don't have the flexibility with the button. You have a select choice.
So just like read more, or
read more, shop now, book now. So it's basically, they're all short like that. So they're like 2 words that you can choose that Twitter has programmed as these are your choices.
Okay, well, hopefully at some point they'll flesh it out a little bit, but it sounds like it's at least the bare minimum. It's enough. It's
enough, and it's a good way to get started if you are, if you do want to just do it, and you don't want to have to worry about email addresses when you need phone numbers.
Makes sense. And I assume like all the common like destination URL benefits apply. Like you can tag that and send them wherever you want.
Yeah, you get all the tagging, you get all the traditional stuff. It's just, sends them there.
Just an ad on Twitter.
Ad on Twitter, exactly.
All right.
So going through the best practices.
Oh, like look at this. Look at all like I just okay. So this is like the third instance of something that I've stepped on. So I asked you about the buttons, and then you have a card in here about the buttons.
You're just really excited about the topic, so you just jump ahead and make sure that I answer eventually. But I do. And this one is the different buttons that you can choose, and a good basically best practices make them feel special. So offer them some reason that they're like, yes, I want that. Usually it's something maybe exclusive or some incentive to make them click. So you can, give them free white papers, coupons, discounts. Any type of compelling offer tends to work better, at least from what I've seen. So like get a discount seemed to work better than sign up now or get it now. Just because then they're like, oh, it's exclusive to Twitter. And obviously you have the limitations with the website card, which is why you can test them. So what's great is you just do want to keep testing and see what works best. And when you do normal tweets, advertising, you have to refresh them, but with the lead cards, you don't have to refresh any of them.
Really?
So once you kind of find what works, it'll just keep running and you don't have to necessarily refresh it if you don't want to. So it's more of a low key than when you do the normal like tweet advertising.
Right.
And kind of going from there, the last best practice, and I don't know if you guys have ever run into this. This is the error button you get from Twitter.
So they don't give us the fail whale for like when ads break?
I guess. And this is what I got again. This is like the last couple times that I get the broken robot.
Oh my gosh. It's like an end of an era. The fail whale was like a constant in my life for a while.
I mean, maybe it gets integrated in. Maybe it's maybe they're just sharing it now with the failed robot. But the last step is if you're doing the lead generation cards, don't ignore the emails that are coming. Make sure you have a backup plan for them. So if you don't have an email marketing campaign, make one or know how you're going to follow up on them. Because if not, you're just going to have a ton of leads and paid for those and done nothing.
But I think in that case, like you may also want to like segment them out because at this point, all you have is that email address. So it's not necessarily like they may not be as qualified as like you might expect, unless it's like a remarketing campaign, in which case they've been to your site before.
And so maybe the email address can match out.
Yeah,
and you can get more from it, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the best practices that we have. So going into Twitter remarketing, as Eric has already touched on a couple times, it's great because you can just remarket to people who've already been to your site. So you get the same thing of the idea of you get B2B, but you also get anybody. So whatever you want to focus on, you can. You basically put the snippet of code. Now, what's funny or tricky about it is if you're never set it up before, you get the code in the conversion tracking section, and conversion tracking equals remarketing lists. So it's kind of like a roundabout way that they call it conversion tracking, and then when you click into conversion tracking, you have the option, do you want a website tag for conversions or do you want a website tag for tailored audiences? And the tailored audiences is your remarketing list.
That sounds like they might want to fix that.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing for starting out just because it's not where you would expect it and not called what you would expect it to be. But definitely the best practice would be just put both codes on, make sure you get the conversion on there and the other one, and make sure for some reason they don't conflict or anything like that. And then you can refine your lists. You don't have the option of obviously dynamic remarketing, but you can refine more lists if you want to target a particular product or a particular page on your site. So that kind of gives you a little bit more control, just
specificity.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's the remarketing. And then, as Eric has already said, remarketing with Twitter cards is a really good way to boost conversions because you get the low-hanging fruit. You get the people who are pre-qualified, they know who you are, and you can send them back to your website. You can just collect their email address. That's all you need. And again, you just need the separate campaign, the website tags, both of them, and then the lead card.
Twitter cards, either website or lead. Either one works. Either one can be remarketed, as Kristina has mentioned. And whoa, a little awkward, but it's all right. We'll move past it. And then, so live poll question number 3. So what social network are you most excited about advertising on in 2014? So it's not necessarily the one you're going to do the most advertising on, but which are the ones you're most excited about advertising on? So we have the options down here. So we have Facebook, which I think we've done a good job of like talking about some of the specific benefits to Facebook. We have LinkedIn, which we're actually going to touch on just in a little bit. We have Pinterest, which is new to, I guess, that world of PPC advertising. And then also Twitter. So I know for me, it's actually probably, like, I'm going to go with the old warhorse. So I'm actually excited about, like, what Facebook is rolling out. So they talked about, like, the Atlas advertising platform that they're going to be launching very quickly to, according to them, revolutionize the advertising industry. We'll see if that happens, but I am still very interested to see what's going to come from that. But what about you, Kristina?
I don't know. See, I think I'm going to go the opposite end of the spectrum. I think I'm kind of excited about Pinterest.
Really?
Because it's just different, and it's
Yeah.
this. I think it's going to be an interesting space to get into.
See, so I think it might be like, so that's like that gender split that Pinterest has too, because like guys, I'm a guy, I don't necessarily, like I don't pin stuff. The only experience I have with Pinterest is looking at people who like pin really elaborate cakes and then their attempt at it, and the two are like so far apart.
That's fair. I guess you could argue that maybe that's it too, but looks like we have our results.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 46% of you are interested in Facebook. So solidarity, nice. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. 8% of you interested in LinkedIn. Okay. 19% interested in Pinterest. So a decent chunk are with you as well.
Decent amount. Not
Decent
too bad.
amount. Yeah, all right. It could be like a good solid third place. And then Twitter coming in at 27%. So luckily, it seems like most of you have been interested in Facebook, so hopefully we hit all like the greatest hits for stuff you could potentially employ on Facebook, since I know we spent a lot of time on it. But it looks like the Twitter audience is well served too.
Definitely.
But yeah, so anyway, to go back on to what we talked about with Pinterest. So yeah, there were these cakes that these people put up there. It was, I actually know, it was like Cookie Monster cupcakes, and it was like really, really great looking. Yeah, so they were fantastic looking, and then somebody like posted their attempt at them, and it looked like somebody just dumped a vat of blue frosting on top of cupcakes.
But it's probably still delicious, which is what matters.
Well, yes, because it has frosting, but yeah, and then so I think the meme behind it is nailed it, because so they like, yeah, I nailed it, just like a bunch of, okay, moving on, I'm getting like to wrap it up, and they're just cowering in the corner, just like shaking their head, face palming. We're off the rails right now. So moving on, are you LinkedIn? Kristina, I have a question. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn.
Why are we not connected?
That is true. I don't think we are.
Oh, see, I just blindsided her right there. That was the whole intent behind this webinar, to ask her why we're not connected on LinkedIn. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention LinkedIn, because kind of like Facebook, it gives you a way to target people in a way that you can't in AdWords. So it's like the potential applications for B2B in particular are really compelling. You can do things like targeting people by their specific titles or seniority, or target decision makers in the specific organizations that you're looking to court. So for like B2B purposes, LinkedIn is really exciting in a lot of ways. So some of the pros and the cons of LinkedIn. So the pros here, it has a low fee to start with a minimum cost per click of $2, which depending on your industry might actually be a lot lower than the cost per click in many AdWords advertising campaigns. There's also a minimal investment, so it can spend as little as $10 a day. And there are multiple ad types. So just like Facebook has the sidebar ads and the news posts, you can do the same thing with LinkedIn, where you have sponsored in-mail, which is kind of like their mail marketing that appears in your LinkedIn mailbox, or linked updates and social ads. In addition, you have multiple targeting options. So you can target by location, by company, by industry, and by job title. But you can also, it's also inexpensive yet flexible. So there's CPC and CPM bidding, but also a flexible daily budget. And then it's easy to set up. I mean, honestly, it just requires a linked credit card. Some of the cons, though, it can be a little bit too restrictive. So while layering your targeting can be a really great practice in some of these other advertising campaigns, so like on Facebook, on the AdWords display network, you can get a little bit too restrictive, a little bit too specific on LinkedIn to actually get performance out of it. Lead tracking can also be tricky, so it's a recommendation here to definitely use analytics. There is no help desk for LinkedIn, so getting assistance for some stuff can be kind of difficult. Click-through rate is king. It actually determines when you show. So you need to be sure that your click-through rate, click-through rate just naturally is going to be lower on LinkedIn, but you need to make sure it's as high as you can get it, because that determines when you're going to show. And then also account access for enterprise LinkedIn accounts can be difficult. Like in some cases, we've actually had to link our own personal LinkedIn accounts to do LinkedIn advertising. So it's kind of a pain in the butt. So they're kind of in the painful growth stages that Facebook had been in prior to some of their previous UI launches. I'd say LinkedIn is still in that stage.
But that probably means they just have lots of room too.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the ugly duckling phase before they become like a beautiful swan of internet advertising. This is a really pained metaphor, so I'm going to move on right now, and we can just all not acknowledge that it ever happened. So best practices, segmentation is key. So divide your targeting methods by campaign. So if you're targeting by industry or by company, have a couple of layers on top of it if you want, but make sure it's always segmented, because that's how you're going to control your budget. So a good rule of thumb, a good audience size for LinkedIn is at least 100,000 strong. And actually the recommendation is more than that. So 100,000 to about 400,000 are recommended. You're going to always want to choose one or more locations to make sure you're targeting things correctly. And then when targeting by industry, so industry sizes are actually fairly substantial here. So only 1 to 2 at most will usually work. If you have more than that, split them out into different campaigns. And then, when targeting by job function, consider these your keywords. So group them in similarly themed ad groups so your ad copy is still relevant. This is one of those things where kind of gets back to the audience discussion. So the job functions are going to be a much smaller audience size. So by lumping them together in these similarly themed ad groups, you'll be sure you're actually showing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, I don't know, it's interesting only 1 to 2 job sizes, but it makes sense just because there's so many people on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then have at least 3 ad variations within your campaign and refresh them monthly. And then this comes from so a lot of these tips come from our kind of LinkedIn guru, Rachel Law, here in-house. So I asked her, she said, good LinkedIn ads have a click-through rate greater than 0.025%. So you're going to have a really low click-through rate on LinkedIn. So I think we talked about like the Facebook sidebar ads had a click-through rate of 0.124%. This is an order of magnitude less than that. So have this expectation going in. You're not going to set the world on fire with your click-through rate. So a good click-through rate here is going to be much lower. And then always include an image in your ad. So they're small, only 50 by 50 pixels. So if you remember what that 100 by 72 pixel Facebook sidebar ad used to look like, this is even smaller than that. This is literally half the size. But make sure they fill up the space and they're easy to read. And then just some other things. So business to business, B2B, does very well on LinkedIn. And then have a LinkedIn-only landing page. So you're targeting people on this professional network. So make sure your content on the landing page don't have like cat videos or memes or all this other kind of crazy stuff you could theoretically have on a landing page. This is for a professional network. So make sure your landing page is up to snuff. Make sure it's built for professionals.
Keep it classy.
Exactly. Keep it classy. Hashtag keep it classy. Tying it back to Twitter. Liking keep it classy on Facebook. All of that. But yeah, so those are some of the LinkedIn best practices that we've observed in our own experience with the platform. So we have one final poll question. So Kristina, do you want to take this one?
Sure, I can read it. So would you like help with your PPC accounts and management? And then you'll answer, I'm interested in PPC management. We handle the day-to-day management of your PPC account audit. We review your account for optimizations. PPC retainer, we handle only specific needs within your account. Or free account analysis. We look at your account and provide analysis and consultations for accounts with 20K or more in ad spend.
Yeah, so I've done like pretty much like every single one of these. For management, obviously, like we'll take over like day-to-day stuff. The audit, just look for stuff you could potentially be doing better, or just low-hanging fruit areas of opportunity. Retainer, man, I've done some stuff on retainer. You've done it with me too.
Yeah.
Like handling like millions of keywords getting sorted and uploaded with like keyword level destination URLs. It's pretty hairy, but it's also kind of cool. And then yeah, the free, absolutely free. I want to emphasize that FREE, free account analysis. So we'll keep that running while we move on to the live Q&A, the most exciting part of this whole thing, because anything could happen now, because we're turning it over to you. Oh man, I'm tingling. It's crazy. Yeah, so we have a couple of questions here. So the first one, okay, so I think we've already answered this one. So what's the strangest comment you've ever gotten on a Facebook page post ad? So mine was definitely about the guy who met the goddess Kuan Yi / Isis and learned about the healing power of sound. But I don't know. What about you, Kristina?
That one was the most entertaining, but the spam put so much effort onto it. Oh,
It really
yours.
did.
And I don't think I've ran into two crazy ones on my own. I think your spam one's my favorite that I've seen.
Okay, yeah, he really was
Just because of the dedication.
The dedication to it, like, oh man, you spam my news, we don't spam you, kaboom. The kaboom, I think, is what really sold it for me, personally. The kaboom.
Yeah, and it was so much spam.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see. We have a little bit more time. So what's your favorite Facebook remarketing platform? Mine, definitely Admiral. Like, I've had the most experience there, but I've also, that's kind of where I introduce people to the Facebook marketing stuff. So
yeah, Adderall would probably be my answer too. Mainly because it is the one I'm familiar with as well the most. Unless you're doing the dynamic remarketing, I think then I would say Perfect Audience, just 'cause it's easy there. But yeah, Adderall, I think if I was choosing one of the two, that'd be my two.
But definitely e-commerce, go with like Perfect Audience or native remarketing too. That's always going to be like if you're a power user, definitely do it there. Is it possible to have dynamic remarketing through native Facebook remarketing?
Not. You can create refined lists.
Okay.
But you don't have the same power to
manipulate. It's not dynamically created.
Right, because you don't link it with the Google Merchant Center.
Right.
Which is how the dynamic remarketing works, is that you link it with your Merchant Center. So
yeah, so that's only through Perfect Audience, like at least the dynamic part of that. Like
if you don't want to do all the work of doing all the refined lists.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So which social medium would you recommend for conversion volume and low cost per conversion? So low CPA. So I think like it depends on the industry. So I don't want to say like a blanket recommendation for Facebook. Not everything like that. I know in the ones that I've worked with, so it was like B2C lead generation, we see like about a $17 cost per conversion in AdWords and a $9 cost per conversion in Facebook. So that's the one that I would recommend, but they have like a really large presence on social media too.
Yeah, I would probably say Facebook as well, though it changes a little bit. If I've had a lot more success with like B2B stuff on other platforms, but Facebook would be probably my go-to for volume. Right,
for sure. So I think we have time for one more question here. So how often do you recommend refreshing your Facebook creative?
I mean, I would say at least at the minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with Facebook, if you don't refresh them, they get stale and they kind of drop off a little bit for volume.
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't know, maybe at least every other month, maybe every 60 days.
I know the thing that I hate about refreshing my Facebook ads or like creating new ones is that all of a sudden I lose like 5,000 likes.
Like all the data goes.
Yeah.
But it's just sometimes when you put the new one up, all of a sudden you see
a
volume, spike in volume.
Stagnate.
So it's like kind of like just how many, maybe it's like a level of how many likes you get versus how much you think you're gonna get.
Yeah,
versus,
exactly.
You know, when you get that boost.
But you know what? I think the best answer there is just to test it.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have more questions, please contact us directly. So we take webinar feedback and feedback about Fast and Furious films, Godzilla, anything we discussed today. Send that email to marketing@hanapinmarketing.com. But yeah, we want to thank you for attending our webinar today. So you can also get a free account analysis from Hanapin Marketing for accounts greater than 20K a month in ad spend by going to that URL there. So it's hanapinmarketing.com/account-analysis. And yeah, in general, just wanted to thank you, everybody who took the time to attend. I don't know, my carnival of dumb stuff. And Kristina's also first webinar.
Yeah, thank you for attending.
Yeah, absolutely. She did a great job. Be sure to reach out and say, give her feedback and say how great she did, because she did a really great job. Me, probably a little bit less so. I got a little dumb, but we still want to thank you for putting up with that regardless. So yeah, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar and hope to see you soon.